Welcome everybody. This is a presentation that will mainly be a demo. We will discuss and demonstrate the use of VMware Player to create a virtual machine. Let's see. Okay, and all these slides are available and a few thousand more up here on my website. And the summary is that you can use VMware Player to create virtual machines that run inside your real Windows computer. And these real virtual machines act like separate computers so that you can run guest operating systems such as the increasingly popular Windows 10 Pro Technical Preview. And in my case, I also run about 40 different distros of Linux inside these virtual machines. So it gives me the ability to help people with computers, operating systems, and hardware that otherwise I would not be able to run. And the topics today will be a quick set of slides and a big demo. That's what they asked for. We'll start off with talking about the concept of virtual machines, the benefits of using them, the VMware Player virtual machine program, and steps for implementing virtual machines. Okay, a virtual machine is a single window inside your existing computer that acts like an entire separate computer. And it's a very powerful concept. In the world of software developers and hardware developers, it is an extremely powerful tool for creating and developing new technologies. In your case, it can be a great tool for you to use that single humble laptop of yours to help many other people as a computer users group member. And it's like having a big pile of computers given to you for absolute free, because the software is free and the operating systems, including Windows, can be free if you download them on a trial basis. Okay, now what else can I tell you about? Okay, thin provisioning. You save a lot of hard drive space because virtual machines and virtual machine programs know how to lie to software and hardware about how big hard drives are. So a lot of software will not even install if you don't have the correct amount of hardware hard drive space remaining on your real hard drive. But when you work in the virtual machine world, it's like gaming. The hard drive program, the hard drive drivers just lie to your software and other hardware, both real and virtual, about how big of a hard drive you have and how much space is left. You can easily run software that conflicts with each other. I know a gentleman who installed 4 different versions of Microsoft Office on his computer, and it took 10 minutes to load to boot up every morning. And each version was slower, so slow, and they were generating a lot of error messages. So apparently, Microsoft doesn't like that when you do that. And then you can run all kinds of older software. I've got TurboTax and Quick and Wayback, and I don't like to run them all on the same computer, so I put them each in their own virtual machine. So same for Flight Simulator. It runs a lot nicer in a virtual machine when it thinks it's the only software running inside the computer it's running on. Okay, you can clone an existing virtual machine that you've already created in a fraction of the time it takes to set up and reload real physical computers. I was trying to make a presentation with a virtual machine about 2 weeks ago, and I was trying to edit the registry inside the virtual machine, and the darn thing corrupted. I couldn't get Windows started. So I went back to a backup copy, and I was back up and running again with an exact copy of that virtual machine in less than 15 minutes. So that virtual machine took about 2 hours to set up originally. So you can save a lot of time if you know how to do it. You can use a clone virtual machine for accessing the web, and if it catches malware like the gentleman before was telling us about, you can delete the whole darn virtual machine and either reinstall a new one or get a clean copy of it from a backup hard drive, and you're back in business again. So it's like a throwaway computer. That's what I was going to tell you about. Okay, VMware program. It's free for non-commercial use. Okay, The copy that I'm running today, which I'll show you when I start sharing my screen, doesn't say for non-commercial use only on top of it. That's because when I'm volunteering for all these users groups and when I'm running a business or two, when I'm doing all my work, I'm not using a computer for non-commercial use. So I'm just trying to be honest and not show you, not be shown on a video that goes around the world pirating software. So then it's easy to clone and move virtual machines in VMware Player. It's the easiest one for duplicating an existing virtual machine. And it has better and faster virtual USB ports than other virtual machine programs. That's critical for me because I do a lot of work with USB connected devices, and I'll show you that as part of the demo. There are about 5 free virtual machine programs, and each one has its strengths and weaknesses, and I talk about them on my website. So you can pick based on what you need. This is the one that I use the most often because it meets my needs. But I will also jump into another virtual machine program in a few minutes as part of my demo because I need to not trash my own computer. And that virtual machine program is called VirtualBox, Oracle VM VirtualBox, and it's better at the kind of demo that I'm going to show you as the first 10 minutes of my demo. So each one has its strengths and weaknesses. Okay, VMware Player has the fastest virtual machine programs relative to other virtual machine programs. Fastest running virtual machines relative to other virtual machine programs. And I put a caveat there for most Windows computers. Every once in a while, I'll be on a news group, and I'll read that somebody put in VMware Player, and it brought his computer down to a crawl. It apparently conflicts with some graphics programs. So I don't know which ones. So you have to use the one that works best for your specific computer. In most cases, it'll be VMware Player. Okay, implementing virtual machines. You have a real computer. This box represents a real computer. Your existing computer. It can even be a Linux computer. And you install a virtual machine program into it. It's free. You download it from the internet and you install the darn thing. Then the actual steps for doing all this are at my website here. Okay, I'll go through them extremely fast today because I have only about half an hour more to do all this. The steps I show you are all detailed in much greater detail at this site. And then the big step 200, create a new virtual machine. That's you're creating virtual hardware, fake hardware that fools other software and hardware into thinking it's a real computer. And so you're inside this virtual machine program called VMware Player. You create a new virtual machine. And the steps for doing so are here. And finally, you install a guest operating system. That's any operating system that will install into a standard PC into the virtual machine. Now, if you're running Parallels or VMware Fusion in a Mac, you could install the Mac OS X operating system into it. But on my end, using a Windows PC, you have to install either Linux or one of the versions of Windows or DOS. So finally, you install this operating system. Today we're going to install Windows 10 Pro into the guest operating system, into a virtual machine as a guest operating system. Okay, and finally, after that, and here are the steps, which I'll go through extremely fast today. And then at the end of the operation, it's an optional step that you just about have to do. Install the virtual machine programs, drivers into the virtual machine. In other words, supposing you buy a motherboard at Fry's Electronics or Best Buy, and a case and a power supply and all the goodies, and you build a computer. Inside the motherboard box, there will be a CD or DVD full of drivers. That's what this is. These are specific drivers to make the virtual machine work better with the virtual hardware motherboard and the virtual video card and things. Okay, so it's the same concept. In the case of VMware Player, it's called VMware Tools. So you install that in there, and you have a higher video resolution, and it runs a lot better. So what else can you do? Okay, the steps for doing this very last step are here. So now I think it's time for me to share my screen and show you a bunch of whiz-bang stuff. So if he'll give me kill off this presentation and give me a share button, I'll click on it a couple of times and share my screen. Excellent. So I want to share my whole screen. So then you have to hit this other button here called share. All right. Let's see, currently sharing. Stop sharing. I don't want to do any of that. All right. Okay, now you're seeing my computer. At the bottom of my computer, I have 4 windows running, represented by these task buttons. The leftmost window, and maybe I can zoom it to put a little graffiti on this screen. How's that? All right. And okay, I think it's Control 2. Is it Control 2? Yeah, Control 2. Okay, leftmost button is today's presentation. It's the add-on for Adobe Connect. Over here is a quick demo I'm going to show you of a virtual machine in all its glory. Over here, I'm going to show you, I'm going to use this virtual machine to demonstrate how to install VMware Player. And this is, in case anybody wants to see it again, the slides for this presentation. So let's start off, and I'll start off here. And if I hit the escape, that thing pops up. Okay, here is a virtual machine. Inside this virtual machine, you probably can't see it. I'm supposed to be watching Antique Roadshow, but I think it just ended in the PBS channel inside a virtual TV using the WinTV program, which is part of a bunch of equipment I purchased so I can watch TV inside my computer. And let me show you what I've done with this virtual machine. I can't go into a lot of details. That's another whole presentation. So let's go here. Let's go to the control panel. And I'll just show you real quickly, and then we'll move on. This virtual machine is running in VMware Player. It's running the enterprise version of Windows 10 Preview, which I won't be demonstrating today. And in this virtual machine, I have attached a bunch of real devices. I've attached a, let's see, what should I do? I should go Control and do some more graffiti. Okay, I've attached a here TV tuner and installed the software that goes with it, a USB TV tuner. I've attached a webcam, which can't run because I'm at too low a video resolution in order to do this demo. What else have I done? I've attached a US Robotics fax data modem, so I can do some funny things like dial up for free into net zero for a super slow connection to the internet, and send faxes out for my better half. She sends a lot of faxes to various businesses. So inside this virtual machine, I can do real work. And that's what the beauty of VMware Player. It's got a very strong USB, virtual USB implementation. So I'm going to go ahead and kill out of all this and hit escape. I'm going to close this window, and to save, I'm going to go ahead and suspend this virtual machine so I can use it again later in the day. You can either suspend them or you can close them. Suspending is like putting something into suspended animation, just like on Star Trek. So I'm going to go and say exit. I'm going to say suspend. I'll come back to this virtual machine exactly the way it's doing, and by then the virtual TV will probably be hung up. Okay. What else can I show you? All right, we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and maximize this virtual machine because it's not really part of the demonstration. I'm going to switch to full screen. All right. That's another beauty of virtual machines. If you maximize them to full screen, and I can see it doesn't maximize as large as I like it to, you can use it like it's your entire computer. You can forget that you have the rest of your computers there, or that other virtual machines are running inside your computer. If you go to the VMware website, VMware.com, and you go to downloads, and don't use the pull down menu because it won't be there. You go to the very near the bottom, there will be a VMware Player link. On the right, there will be a download link. If you click on that, you'll have a page for downloading VMware Player. And if you click on this little drop down here, you can pick between versions 7, 6, and 5 of VMware Player. 7 only runs on 64-bit computers, and so if you have a 32-bit computer, you'll have to run 6. And 7 is the latest and greatest. What I was going to tell you about. So I'm going to go ahead and download a copy of it. I'm going to go ahead and leave it on the default of 7. I'm going to click on download. I'm going to download it to my desktop and save file. And I'm probably going to, it's a nice short download, show all the downloads. It looks like this Firefox didn't give me a choice of where to put it, so I'm going to right click and go to download page, and let's see if it's finally there. What happened? Downloads. Takes the fun out of things. See, if I go up here, I can probably go to downloads. Anyhow, I see downloads. I can right click on it and open container folder. It's inside downloads, and I always like to move downloads to the desktop, so I'll do that to make sure I don't leave it sitting forever somewhere on my hard drive. Then you have to double click on it to install it. I'm going to double click on this VMware Player -7 .exe file, and hopefully it'll run. If it doesn't, I'll cheat a little bit and jump to the next part of the presentation. All right, what else can I show you? Okay, it says VMware Player Pro. If you don't pay for it, you just have the regular VMware Player. And the only difference for most of us will be whether or not we're doing it in a non-commercial environment, okay? Because the feature differences are not important for most users. I accept the terms in the license agreement, and I go next, and I go check for. I want to tell it not to check for product updates because sometimes that interrupts my presentations. Help improve VMware Player. That just takes up RAM and CPU cycles. I don't generally allow that. To make a shortcut on the desktop and start menu program, continue, and it installs. Okay, it's going to sit there and install. Now, it's fairly fast, so it's not that big a program. But anyhow, if it doesn't act real fast, I'm going to go and jump into the next part of the presentation. Okay, so I think I'll kill off this part of the presentation just to move on because we're running out of time. So what I'll do now is bump the bottom, get this toolbar, and minimize, either minimize or suspend this virtual machine. So let's see if I can close and suspend. And close, save the virtual machine state. Now I can actually close it, and that tells the operating system to shut down. That's the copy of Windows 7 running inside a virtual machine. Okay, now I'm back to my good old Windows 8.1 computer. And assuming I've installed VMware Player, it will have a shortcut on the desktop. So we'll go ahead and double click on it. And the first thing you get is something called the Player window. That is the control for the whole system. So you'll notice that I already have a bunch of virtual machines created. That's because I've got about 400 of the darn things in my inventory here. Now, first thing you want to do, and it's in my documentation, is you're going to want to go to File and Preferences. And in there, you want to download all components now. Those are the add-on drivers I told you about that you have to install into each virtual machine. I won't bother to do that. That takes about a minute or two. So we're going to now go ahead and start the wizard for creating a new virtual machine. Up here in the upper right-hand corner, you have a Create a New Virtual Machine wizard. So we're going to go ahead and click on it. And I'll install the operating system later. I'm not going to go and attach a CD or anything to it immediately, because then it takes all defaults. And if you've ever tried to install Windows with the default bare minimum amount of RAM and hard drive space and CPU cycles and number of CPUs, you will have a very unpleasant experience. So I break this into creating the hardware and then installing the operating system, just like you do in real life. And you can see the last thing I did was install Linux into a virtual machine. So I'm going to go back and pick Windows. And I'm going to use this drop down and pick Windows 10 x64. This is just to tell it what virtual machine system, what operating system you're going to put inside the virtual machine. Then click on Next. You give it a name. I'm going to put in the name VTC 14 and the date 2015- the European style date, which sorts better than regular dates, and 21. Then I'm going to click on Next, and it defaults to a very small hard drive size, probably what Microsoft told them to. So I'm going to go ahead and since I told you that we're lying about the size of hard drives, it's called thin provisioning. I'm going to tell it has a 960 gigabyte hard drive, even though I don't have one that big. And it'll work just fine until I need all 960 gigabytes, then I'm in trouble. Store a virtual machine disk as a single file makes it run more efficiently. And then finish. Okay, that creates the virtual machine. Now there's a bunch of steps you need to run through that I'm not going to get to today to convert this from a default BIOS virtual machine to a default UEFI virtual machine. Okay, you have to edit using Notepad one of the files inside your new virtual machine. Incidentally, where is my new virtual machine? It is inside my documents, inside my user, and it is in Windows. It's inside a folder called Virtual Machines, and you'll notice there's a new folder down here which you probably can't see. Maybe I should make it a little bigger. View, medium-sized icons. That's too big, I think. There's a new folder called Windows 10 x64 VTC 14 with today's date. That folder represents the entire virtual machine. What is even more amazing is I can take this folder and move it to another hard drive, put the hard drive in a shipping container, send it to you, and you can run it. So virtual machines are portable, at least VMware Player ones. Other virtual machine programs have other ways for you to move them around, called import, export, import. But anyhow, once you create a virtual machine, you can use it anywhere in the world, as long as you're running VMware Player. Now, what's to stop you from sending this off to 5 billion people in the world and saying, use your help, go at it, help yourself? Well, Microsoft detects the use of your virtual machine by their technologies, and if they find more than one copy running, they try to kill them both by means of their wonderful activation technology system. So it is not wise for me to give you this virtual machine unless it's a trial, in which case they don't care and they don't detect that it is a cloned virtual machine. So there isn't a mechanism for violating any copyright laws, right? So if you right-click on this new virtual machine, you click on Settings, memory is 2 gigabytes. Why is it only set to 2? Because Microsoft told them that's all what that was necessary. If you install Windows 10, 8, 7, or even Vista into a 2 gigabyte virtual computer, real or virtual, you're going to have a very unpleasant experience. So I'm going to drag it up there to about, in my case, about 8 gigabytes to get a faster virtual machine. I can go up to about 32 if I had to, but that would, anything above about 16 will crash my computer. So then go to number of processors, and you pick 4, because that's the number of processors that it's safe to put in there. I have 8 threads, which technically are 8 processors in the software world, but if you tell it to go to 8, it'll get a little buggy and lock up a lot. Hard drive's okay. Now finally you go to the CD, and I have to attach this file that I've gone to Microsoft and downloaded in order to install Windows 10. So I'm not going to show you going to this spot because I'm going to run out of time. If anybody wants to see, you go to insider.windows.com, log in with your Microsoft account, and you don't download the exe file because that'll trash your existing computer, but you download, go a little bit farther down, you download the ISO file, and then you have a virtual DVD. So I'm going to go ahead and say use an ISO file, that's here, and go browse and go back to my desktop, and somewhere on my desktop, which is over here, I'm going to have this ISO file I've downloaded from Microsoft, courtesy of their Insider program. I'm going to say open and attach it to my virtual machine. Then I'm going to go, what else I need to worry about? Network adapter is okay, USB controller is okay, default sound card is a virtual sound card. All this stuff is virtualized by software. Printer is present only because it provides you a virtual printer based on the default printer in my host computer. Okay, so then I say okay. I think I'm about ready to go. Okay, now you click on this. You then click on this play button down here. Play. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a play button, and you start the virtual machine, and you start installing Windows 10. So let's see if we can get it going. It's a little slippery here. All right. Now, and it warns you about there are a lot of pieces of equipment you can attach to this virtual machine if you so desire, and you start your installation. And let's see what I can do here. All right, I'm going to drag this virtual machine. See, now I'm going to drag this virtual machine over a little bit so you can see it. All right, and you then hit a bunch of nicks, unless you want to change to some other language and some weird keyboard. Okay, so you click on next, and you say install now. Now at this point, if you had just booted up an existing computer that was running Windows 10 Pro Preview, and you needed to repair it, you would click on repair your computer. That's called a repair install. Much other repair utilities are in there also. I click on install now, and I can go and hopefully it'll start up the installation. Okay, and setup is starting, and it gives you this disclosure. This disclosure, if you read the fine print, sends you off to a website, and you click on accept. I accept the license terms. It takes you to a website that warns you that Microsoft will log all your keystrokes, grab all your videos and voice that you speak into the virtual machine, their operating system, as part of their program for improving Windows 10. So obviously, if you were sensitive about having anybody looking at what you were doing, you would not be running Windows 10 Preview. So okay, you have a choice between upgrade, which won't mean anything because I'm not upgrading an existing computer. So you want to install a custom install, which starts you from scratch. It found my virtual hard drive and says, look, it doesn't realize that it's not really that big. So I have a 960 gigabyte virtual hard drive there, and you go next, and hopefully it'll start installing. And it'll go for a while, and if it goes too long, I'll just show the results. How's that? And the other thing you have to do, which while this is all going, is when you're installing a virtual machine when you're creating a virtual machine, it defaults for some unpleasant reason to a SCSI virtual hard drive controller. If you're installing Android or some of the less known flavors of Linux, it'll crash. So one thing you can do is you can detach the newly created virtual machine virtual hard drive and reattach it to a more standard SATA virtual hard drive controller. And I'll probably show you that if there's time, because Huey was going to install Android, and if he doesn't do that, he's going to have a very unpleasant experience installing Android. So let's see, maybe I should do that now. Getting files ready for installation. All right. Let me actually I can't get into it right now, so I'll have to go to another virtual machine. So I'll open up the VMware player window, and I'll pick on another virtual machine, not the day I'm working on, but one I'm working on today, and it says it's not there. Okay, I'll pick on another one. I'll pick on this Linux Mint virtual machine, go to settings, and you'll notice that if you go here to Advanced, you'll notice that the darn thing is attached by default to an SCSI virtual hard drive controller. So if you were to convert that virtual machine, you would first of all remove it. Remove the virtual hard drive like that. Then you would go and say add a virtual hard drive like that. I hope this doesn't trash anything. Then you would go to, this is before you install Android now, or whatever distro doesn't get along with SCSI virtual hard drive controllers. And what else was it doing? Oh, I was somewhere around here I was supposed to add. Let's see if I can figure out how this is going. There. And then you say you want to add an existing hard drive. I click on Next. And at this point, you can pick what kind of controller you're using. Go and put it as a SATA controller for many of the distros of Linux and earlier versions of Windows and things. And then click on Use an existing virtual disk. Click on Next. And then go Browse for your existing virtual disk. And in there, you'll find an existing virtual disk, the one you just detached. And you'll pick on it right there. And you click on Open, which then you'll click on Finished. And now you'll have a virtual, it even doesn't show it to you yet, you'll have a virtual SATA controller for your virtual hard drive. Otherwise, a lot of distros of Linux and earlier versions of Windows and DOS will not install. So we're still killing time watching this hourglass. So I might have to either talk about something else or show you another virtual machine. Let's see, what can I show you? Well, let's see. It's getting files ready for installation. Okay, so obviously it's going to be a while. So let me show you what happens after you get it installed. I'm going to find a copy of the virtual machine I can pick on. Let me jump over to some more virtual machines I have created and pick on one. Let's see here. Can't use that one. That one's crashed. If I go here, let's take a look, see what I've got going.
Francis, while you're doing that, John B. asks, where do we get this manual in PDF format?
Which manual? You mean this entire presentation?
Yeah, I think he's talking about what you're doing. Is there any kind of a manual or help to that he can refer to while he's trying all of this?
Okay. Well, first of all, at the VMware website, there is a download the manuals right at the same place that you download the virtual machine software. Okay, it's a nice download. So that's one place. Second of all, I have written a ton of manuals. Okay, and they're more detailed than a lot of the ones that you get on the internet. If you go to the aztcs.org, and some of this may end up on the APCUG website. Oh, that's another thing. I put a lot of these manuals, the directions on the APCUG website in the discussion group, the forums. If you go to my website, and it looks terrible, doesn't it? I'm going to make it a little smaller. Come on. If you go zoom in, I hope. I'll just go Control minus. Nothing like a keystroke. All right, if you go to my website, aztcs.org, you go to meeting notes. I have everything I've just told you today, and then some, is in this pile of notes, along with screenshots and steps. I don't want you to fail. This is not a techie's guide. This is a guide I hand out to people in some of the classes I teach. These people are new to computers. So in here is how to do it for Linux Mint and how to do it for Windows 10 Pro Technical Preview. And for every step I've showed you today, there is a screenshot. I promise you, I do not skip a screenshot. That's only done by Microsoft and the tech writers because their audience is technicians. So if you go here, you can get in PDF format, and if you want it in PPT format, it's this upper link right up here at mybox.com uh, cloud storage space. So you can get a lot of information. Plus, if you want any help, I'm on Skype and I'm on email. I'd be glad to work with you on any problems that develop. Okay? Building virtual machines is similar to building computers. There are things that can go wrong, and there's some trial and error. I've tried to take some of that out by showing you the steps that work and giving you some if this happened, then go to here sort of instructions. So I don't know if that answers his question because I can't see text right now, but I'd love to even show you some of this by Skype.
Yeah, he did say thanks, and thanks for your website too.
Yeah, that'll help. And also, if you go to the forums, the Windows forum at the APCUG website, some of that's there. About half of that is there now. Okay? And then what else was I going to show you? Okay, let's see if the installation is coming along. Well, I got a nice black screen. I don't know if that means that good or bad. Okay, that's usually a good sign. I don't know if I can stand watching it too long, since I've got to keep moving, and I can see that we're running out of time. Let me see if I can jump to the next step. Let's see what's happening here. Current sharing. Oh, that's all that was. Okay, let's see if I can cheat a little bit and jump to the next step. All right. Oh, boy. Okay. A secure boot, Windows TV, UEFI. I'd like to know which. I got some long names in some of these presentations. All right. UEFI, then Fedora. No, you don't want to see me installing Linux. Let's just check on our install, see how it's doing. Oh, it's gonna be hung up for a while. I'm gonna go ahead and jump to another virtual machine. I don't know if I can. It'll show you something different. I hope it does. I'm gonna go ahead and jump over to replay capture. You don't want that. Let's try this one right here. This is a slightly earlier version of Windows 10 Enterprise. It should do the trick. Let's see if I can get it started. Now you notice that it's a bunch of files, right? You notice I'm not using the virtual machine player window to start the darn thing. In fact, I'm going to shut off the virtual machine player window to save a little bit of RAM. If you double click on this VMX file, you start the virtual machine. So does that give you any ideas? If you put that in a batch file and you put it in startup, you could run the virtual machine as your main computer when you boot up your computer, right? So, okay, so that gives you some ideas. I'm going to see if this works. So eventually, I'm going to find out whether or not any of this is going to work. So, anyhow, I've got instructions also. I may not get to it today. We're running out of time to show you how to install those drivers at the end to make it work better. If you don't install those drivers, you'll have real lousy video resolution. The clock will get out of sync with your host computer. All this bad stuff happens to you. The same stuff that happens when you don't install drivers into a newly installed motherboard that you've installed. So this is a virtualized version of installing a new motherboard. That's what I'm doing. Motherboard and power supply. And you can see it's hung up doing this swirling circle. So let's see if this thing is going to be any better over here. Okay. I hope it will be better. There. This is going to see if this does any better. Please wait. Well, that's a little farther on in the installation, right? Because please wait, it's a little farther, about a minute or two. Oh, okay. This one isn't going to cooperate with me, so that's not going to be helpful. So let's see if the other one's going to finally come up. Nope. And then the next steps that you go through involves setting up a user account in Windows 10. And my advice to you is don't do everything they tell you. If anything involves sending bits and bytes to Microsoft, say no, because it slows down your computer and your experience with Windows. Okay? What else can I tell you about? At some point it's going to ask you, it's going to tell you to log in with your Microsoft account. That isn't going to help you at all, because it'll add massive complexity to your new virtual machine, and it'll take the settings from your existing computers and try to jam them into your virtual machine. It'll try to take data from files that you've stored up in. Oh, I think we're making some good progress. It'll take data. If you log into your Microsoft account, before you get your virtual machine Windows 10 up and running, you've taken out a lot of the local stuff that your virtual machine and Windows 10 can do. So I recommend doing that later and adding your Microsoft account in after you tried out the local version of Windows 10. And to do that, did it just reboot on me? Darn. To reboot, in my instructions, I show you how to get around putting in a Microsoft account. You have to click on Create New Microsoft Account, scroll down. Microsoft is tricky. They hit it at the bottom of the page, and then click on Create a Local Account. Okay? And the reason for doing all this is you then know the difference between what's local and what is up in the cloud. You don't mix your existing use of what's in the cloud and your existing Microsoft computers with your new virtual machine. So it's in my instructions. I almost feel like going there and showing the slides instead because it's faster. I wonder if I can get away with that. I promised them I would do a demo, and I may not have the time at the current way things are going. I might just cheat and go to my slides unless I can. This is we're at the same point now. Okay, I don't need to go to my slides. Very good. Okay, at this point, it asks you to either use express settings or customize. This is part of any installation of Windows 10 or 8 or 8.1. Always say customize. And is this a home network or are you in a public place? If you are in a home network, it'll let you share printers and files with other computers. If you're in a public place, you don't want to do any sharing in case somebody's trying to hack into your computer, like at a Starbucks. So you can change it later, and that's a trick, another trick. I'm just going to say I'm at a home network. Okay. Now, I told you that you turn off things that cause your computer to go out and use up CPU cycles and internet bandwidth. So I'm going to turn off everything I can to reduce the amount of internet bandwidth I'm using. I'm going to leave this do not track request on to stop some of the websites from throwing some of their ads at me. That'll probably get rid of a tenth of the 1% of the ads on the internet. Okay. Use compatibility lists. That's a download from Microsoft, and the lists are pretty lousy, so don't use them. Everything else should be left off. Now, all this stuff is sharing with Microsoft information. I sometimes do it, but most of the time I don't want them using up CPU cycles and my RAM for doing stuff. And then you got to scroll down some. This is a little tricky here to make sure you don't miss the last one. And I don't care for downloads for getting better protection from their active protection service because it doesn't really that good. I do like Jer recommends, and I actually use a professional version of Malwarebytes to do the same thing, and they run rings around Microsoft software. Okay, now at this point they'll set up your account. That's very friendly of them. Otherwise you can't use your computer. This is your Windows account. And at this point they assume you have a Microsoft account and you're going to log in. You say don't have account, create a new account, even though you don't really want to. Okay, you can later on add that account and do all that wonderful stuff on the cloud. I would recommend doing it with a new Microsoft account so you don't mix in with your current Microsoft account and its settings. Now this is where they're sneaky. They hide the button for signing in without a Microsoft account, creating a local account. So you have to scroll down, and then you click on it. At this point, you create your local account. My default one is called Test User because I can remember it. I have about 400 virtual machines. If I don't make them all the same, I'm going to get myself very confused. And password is always going to be password because I'm just testing. And my default password hint is going to be WordPass. Okay, this is a standard that I do with all the students in my classes also when we're testing new software and things. So I say finish. Okay, now we're done. just about, it's going to go through this big cycle of finalizing your settings. And it goes through about 17 changes of color to let you know all different colors that you can put for the background of your Windows computer. And the next step I won't have time to show you. It's installing those drivers so that you have a better display and so that it works better. These are the virtual motherboard drivers. Okay, so I'm going to show you how you do that just for the heck of it, even though I won't be able to have the time to show you. Go here to the player button up here, and you go click on it, and you go, I think it's manage, and you say install VMware Tools. That's all you do. Then you go into File Manager, the new name for Windows Manager, and you look for the virtual DVD drive that you've downloaded earlier as part of your installation of VMware Player, and you install. This is going faster than I thought. There. Now, the other thing that Microsoft does to you is it gives you this terrible background. First, you can't. It'll make you tired and dizzy. It's beautiful art, but for people at my age, we need to right-click on it and personalize and change it to something that doesn't distract us. I'm very dyslexic, so we go to desktop background, and they're going to fight against it. They're not going to let you do it. So you go here to solid colors, and you pick a solid color, and you say save changes, and it gives you a different one, a different background, because it figures you're crazy. So then you go back here again to desktop background, and you say Windows solid colors again. This time it'll let you, and then you say changes. Okay, like that. Okay, and then you close it out, and you have that nice calm background that I've been looking at since Windows 2000. Okay, so then to get out of the virtual machine program, because I don't have all those drivers in there yet, you have to press Control-Alt. Later on, when you have the drivers in, you'll be able to jump in and out. Then you go to the Windows File Manager, which is File Management right here, and you look for this virtual DVD that they've attached to your computer. And we're running out of time, so I probably won't show you the whole thing. It's all in my screenshots. And they're start opening up this big old virtual DVD, and in there you'll double click on Setup 64. By the time you're done, I'll be able to run my mouse in and out of the virtual machine without having to press Control-Alt. I'll have a much higher video resolution. The clock won't drift in the virtual machine, which is the clock is a function of the virtual motherboard. It'll be synced up with the clock in the host motherboard. All this good stuff happens to you, and it doesn't look like it's going to let me install this DVD. It's still starting up this virtual DVD, so it must be a pretty big one. So what you do then is you just double click on it, and we're running out of time, so I probably should just take questions. And you double click on setup.exe. Sometimes in some virtual machines, but probably not Windows 10, probably Windows 8 and 7, it'll open up automatically. But since this is a beta, a lot of things don't work right, and this virtual DVD is one of them. So you've got to go and give it a little boost to get it started. You notice it's having problems getting started. It won't even display. So eventually, if you wait around whatever time it takes for it to finally get happy with this virtual DVD, you'll find some files in it, we hope. Let's see if I can hit a refresh. Then we'll take questions, and then that'll be there. So you see this setup 64? And also it's good to go into the control panel and inside folder options and turn on file extensions. Most of you should know about that. When Windows is not friendly, and neither is the Mac, when you first start either one of them up, it doesn't show file extensions. So you don't know what the extension is. So I say run as administrator, and we're running out of time, so I guess we better take some questions, right?
No, it's time to go.